Welcome to the BeMORE podcast series, How to Be More Generous. For more information about this podcast and other resources, go to bemore.co.uk.
Hello, welcome to BeMORE. I'm Nicolette Wolfe, the CEO. BeMORE is a charity with a passion to embed generosity into culture. And we do that through connecting, educating and inspiring young professionals who are passionate to make a difference in this world through living generously. It gives me great pleasure to welcome BeMORE Alumni Jackie Scully to chat with us today. Jackie describes herself as a professional with a purpose. As Executive Director of Content at the marketing agency Think and its sister travel media business Think Travel, which runs brands such as Wanderlust, Jackie spends every day trying to help brands and member organizations engage, motivate, and inspire their audiences. From devising content strategies for not-for-profits and charities, and she is a publisher behind a number of multi-award-winning magazines, to authoring the latest industry research looking at communication trends. Jackie believes that communication can be a real force for good with the power to change lives. And the amazing thing about Jackie, because I've known her through the BeMORE program, I know her quite well now, she makes every day count. She balances this successful career with mentoring and volunteer work, as she's currently the trustee of a charity called Mintridge. And she also encourages others to exercise following a diagnosis with breast cancer. So Jackie, welcome to BeMORE. It's brilliant to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's always lovely to see you.
Thank you, Jackie. So I would love to hear about where your generosity started, when it started, and what sparked you to think about generosity and giving.
So I guess to kind of distill it all down, I've always been what you might call one of life's helpers. And I've always found ways, whether it's doing charity events at school or leading charity initiatives at university, I've always found my way into what you might call the generosity box. And I think that it's been such a huge part of my life throughout my life. But I think up until a certain point, I would say that I didn't really have a cause and I didn't really feel I had that real tug and that real purpose. I guess, sadly, you might say, when I was 32, I was unfortunately diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer. And I like to say it came up and my cause came up and sort of hit me around the head a little bit. And in many ways, I feel very grateful for that moment. But I guess that moment also taught me that there are so many people in the world that are such givers and so generous that whilst I was busy sort of raising money for charity and cancer-related causes, I was also receiving all of this incredible generosity and kindness from other people. And it really made me reflect, particularly when I hit my my 5 years clear last year. And I thought, hang on a second, you know, I've experienced all this kindness. I've had this cause-driven approach, but what is there something more to generosity? Am I underthinking it? Could I look at it differently? And actually, could I be a bit more strategic in the way that I give to people? And so I last year decided for my 5 years clear, I would branch away from, well, not away from, but add to the cancer cause that's so close to my heart, and actually seek a way of being generous in a more structured way, I guess. And that's why I did the BeMORE course last year, and it was perfect, but it was perfect for all the things I didn't think it was going to tell me, rather than all the things I went to it for. So yeah, that was the start, was from a young age, but it's evolved over time and is completely different now.
Well, firstly, huge congratulations on the 5-year clear. And I love the fact, I'm sure you celebrated in lots of ways, but the fact that you sort of poured that, reflected on it and poured it into actually wanting to learn a structured way to give is just amazing. I'm fascinated to find out what did you learn through BeMORE and what were the things that were unexpected?
Well, I came to the course thinking, you know, maybe my strategy for giving was wrong. My strategy was follow my heart, follow my cause, give everything I can to one place. And aside from that, I would also, you know, give to friends who were running marathons, do that kind of ad hoc giving, but nothing really structured. So I came to BeMORE thinking I needed a strategy. I needed to work out the charity that would have the most amount of effect on the planet, and then I needed to give my money there. It was a more rounded way of looking at altruism. But I have to say, the team I was with, who I absolutely loved, the groups of speakers, the different lectures, and the journey and the manual that you follow made me realize that actually I'd come asking the wrong questions, and I needed to look at it from a different angle. And the most important part of that was, you know, yes, you can be a strategic giver, that's fine. But actually, you can't detach your head from your heart, because the truth is, your heart is what, when you wake up in the morning and you think about your why, that's prompted by your heart and your generosity and your innate desire to give. And actually, what I came out with wasn't here's what I should do, and I must make nets or buy nets or drugs, or, you know, for developing worlds, or something like that. But actually was a sort of four-pronged giving approach. One of which is obviously to continue giving to the causes that I know really well, giving regularly, and actually making a bit of a plan. One was obviously the work that we went through with BeMORE, which is looking at like narrowing down the causes that you're interested in finding out more about, going for a governance process, and actually, you know, identifying charities that you might not immediately think of, but that tap into your value base. And I think that was a really brilliant learning. And then also, actually, I now have pots for different things. So I also have a pot for spontaneous giving, giving for various things that help other people, because I know how difficult it is to fundraise, and I always have a pot ready and waiting for that. And then the other part that I really learned through BeMORE was that charity starts at home. And so I've gone on to gift things in a charitable way. So, you know, someone loses out on tickets to something because their daughter was sick and they can't afford to rebuy them, so I go buy them, or, you know, things like that, which I learned are actually, if you can't be charitable with those around you, then you don't stand a chance of changing the world. So so that's sort of what I've learned. And BeMORE, the structure of BeMORE was brilliant to take me on that journey. Otherwise, I think I still would be trying to find out how to make the most out of my pound.
It sounds like your experience of giving you've fully owned it. There's a sense of authenticity and integrity that has, you know, you've really allowed your emotions to be affected through giving and the way you give. And I'm delighted, because BeMORE is all about that. Yes, we give you this toolkit, but we're actually wanting to slightly unpack you so that you expose your heart a bit and really think, gosh, I can be empowered to do amazing things. I do have unique skill sets and talents. One question I'd just like to clear up, if I may. Why don't you just give us just a very brief overview of which charity your BeMORE group funded, and how's that played out?
So we agreed that mental health was a big world we wanted to sort of work in. We worked that younger people was something we wanted to focus on. So together we came up with Young Minds, which is a charity that supports young people in their mental health kind of challenges. And what was really interesting and what sort of tipped it for us was that they have like young people on their trustee board, they have consultative young people sort of all around them. So all of their sort of initiatives, their products, the services they generate have young people in the background. And I think so all too often, a lot of us design at the whiteboard and work out what it is we think people want. And this is driven by people who have been really affected by the conditions and have wanted to make positive change. So we were really inspired by them. But what the journey and experience taught me something else about generosity in that regard, which was, so we all clubbed together, got our pot together. I think we raised about £5,000 just individual giving, and we gifted that. We went over and we got a big check and we gave it to them, and that was a brilliant experience. But I think at that time, everyone was like, right, we're going to do so much stuff for them. We're going to help them and consult with them and do all this stuff. And one of our mentors, and you get mentors in the program, which is really brilliant, he said, look, guys, just be careful. With generosity, sometimes you're so excited about it, but often you'll overcommit, or you'll commit in the wrong area, or you'll give your skills, whereas actually all they want is money. And I think that realization was really important. And for me, the biggest learning of last year was that don't think you know what generosity is. If you want to be generous to someone, first listen and understand what it is that generosity means to them, and deliver it for them. So often, money isn't something we can all gift. I appreciate that. But sometimes time is an even more precious commodity. And I think that not overcommitting, I then went on to become a trustee of the charity you mentioned, Mintridge. And that for me was a part of, okay, I want to help, but I want to help in a structured way. I don't want to just be called upon by a charity to do X, Y, and Z. I want to be structured. And so I found a trustee role at the end of the year as a result of the BeMORE course also. So I think it really teaches you about the proper definition of generosity. And I'd like to give one little anecdote before.
Oh, please do.
And there was a really lovely, I say lovely, homeless chap by our offices. And all of last year, I would walk past him and I would give him some food or talk to him or whatever. And always me gifting, never asking. And there was a moment when I'd been on the BeMORE course, the day after, I walked past him and I stood and I sat and I spoke to him and I said, look, I realise I've given you a number of food items over the last, and we've had a few chats, but I've never actually asked you what it is you would really like me to do for you. And he said, I sit near a supermarket, everyone gives me cold food. What I would love is something warm. And I went down the road and I got him his favourite meal, and he was with his girlfriend, and I bought the girlfriend the meal as well. And the unexpected, went back to him and gave it to them. And he said, it's rare that someone actually gives me choice. And that's all I want in life, is the opportunity to have a choice. And I hadn't listened, I just assumed. And for me, that is what generosity is all about. So now I'm first to listen before I give. And I think that's a massive difference in me.
That's amazing. I love that. That's core, isn't it? Just really finding out what their needs are and responding to that in a way that's honoring and facilitates an empowerment where they can actually almost help themselves through it. And it's just amazing to hear that story. I'm just wondering whether there's another story you talk about, like say just having different pots for different things. And I'm presuming you have your sort of regular giving, but then you have these other little special pots. Are there any other little stories that you could tell us of giving in terms of those?
Well, there was one where, so obviously I love helping people achieve their targets. If I can be the one who tips them over, that makes me so excited. And there was a chap, a friend of mine was doing a skydive, and it was the night before the skydive, and he hadn't got near his target. His target wasn't ambitious, and I just thought, if someone is going to jump out of a plane, they are going to go way over their target. So I tipped him over his target the night before, and his wife wrote to me and said, you made everything, you made it better, because he was worried about the money. And people, when they're fundraising, they worry about that target. They set themselves something. They hate asking the same people. They're worried about what to do next, and they want somebody to make their problems go away. And having, I famously, or not so famously, ran the marathon on my wedding day, and trekked the Great Wall of China for my honeymoon, and raised about £30,000 for cancer charities. And I know how hard that was. And I was more worried about the fundraising than I was about the media and the dress and the planning and the husband and all of those things. And so I did that, and that was well received. I also like to go on the different giving platforms virtually, find a stranger, read their story, and just tip them over their target. It's random, I appreciate it, but equally it gives me such a lift. And I think, whilst I don't think giving should ever be considered this sort of selfish act, giving just makes me feel alive. And every day I've done an act of kindness, or or giving in some other way. I just feel, I feel alive, and that's what I want for everybody. And I think, you know, it's interesting this year, people have said that, you know, we should all be traveling with more compassion, we should all be thinking about kindness, but the longer you get from that moment of change, people forget, they lapse into old habits. And I think kindness is the most important thing we have right now. It's our biggest gift in our armory, and if we can use it, I always say, when the currency is kindness, we're all millionaires. And I genuinely believe that. And the more we can do to make other people's lives happier, and charities healthier. I mean, at the moment, charities need us more than ever. So why would we not give if we can?
Yeah, absolutely, Jackie. And with Christmas coming up this year, there's a sense that we're all, you know, we're all slightly traumatized. People are losing their jobs. People don't have work. There's a lot of media adverts on TV, I'm sure, coming up about buying the latest PlayStation, or buying this, or buying this turkey. And I'm sure it's going to be easy for us in our community to feel overwhelmed at this time, and slightly confused as to how we can give when we're feeling like our lives are actually in a sort of state of shock and unpredictability. I just wondered whether you have any thoughts around over your Christmas season, and anything you can sort of encourage our community with over this time of really mixed emotions.
Well, I think the thing to say about it, I think a lot of people worry about having to have lots of cash in the bank. And I think it's not about that. It's about giving what you can, or giving in a way that feels right for you. And so between on the Advent this year, we're going to, as a business, and we're going to give money every day to a different charity, as a sort of way of getting our teams to nominate charities and give. It will be a nominal sum, but the idea is about celebrating different charities. I myself always buy the Advent of Change calendar, which has a charity within the windows each day, and is something that just makes me, I'd much rather see a charity logo and a little bit of description than I would you know, mistletoe or something a bit random, or even a bottle of gin behind the door. You feel that's a really nice message as well. And then I think, you know, I always think when I do gifting, I always like to think of different ways to do it. So thinking about less about Christmas, but more about sort of life. When I've read a book, I printed up these little postcards, and I write a little message in the book, and either leave the book somewhere, obviously COVID related now, I put them in the community bookshop, which is just by the train station, and people can just take a book. But in it, I put a little message in the hope that that might find its way to someone and may put a smile on their face. It's something I've already read. I'm not going to read it again. So in a way, it's free for me to give, but the message, you know, travels. And I think with gifting, the best gifts I've ever given to people are gifts that are from the heart. They're harder to think about, they take more time, but actually people that have gone out of their way to do something that they know will make a difference. For example, one year I wrote a card for every month of the year for my friend, and I told her on the day on which to open it. She was getting married that year, she was having lots of different things going on, and so every month on the same day, she'd get to open a new card with a new message, which would remind her of how great she was and all the things that she could do and achieve. And another thing, when I was sick, when I was going through cancer treatment, I came up with a little campaign called the Pink Hearts campaign, where I made pink hearts that people can hang all around the house with little postcards explaining how they'd helped me in life, what they've done for me, the characteristic traits I love about them, and the fact that one day in the future I'm going to do something completely spontaneous that they'll never know came from me, but to wait for it, and it's coming in the future. So that was 6 years ago. I'm now about to embark on a kind of the rewarding strategy part of that. But it's stuff like that, messages, words, giving your thoughts, because the last thing you want is for someone to stand and give a eulogy about you that you'll never hear. And it's my view that when people thought I was dying, they told me a load of random stuff about all the stuff I'd done for them that I never even thought about after I'd done it, like driving someone in a car around all the places she'd like to possibly live but wasn't quite sure, giving her descriptions, helping. And she wrote to me, and this was a woman I'd met twice, and she wrote to me and she said, "You don't know what you did for me that day." And I think we never know quite the impact of those tiny little moments of giving. So if I was to invite anyone to do anything, it would be give with your heart and your words, because that is where you will make the true impact.
Wow, Jackie, I feel really emotional. It's such a privilege to talk to you. I could ask for tips all the time, all the time. It's just so lovely. And I think you've really made me think about my Christmas and how magical we can make it by, like you say, the kindness of our words and the listening ear and being creative as well. I just want to encourage you. You're such a brilliant inspiration for all of us at BeMORE, and we're just so delighted to have you as one of our community. I always ask this question at the end of chatting to my friends, and I'm going to ask you as well. If there was one thing that you'd like to say to the BeMORE community, perhaps you're in Piccadilly Circus and you have that billboard upside of the curve of the wall for one day and everybody's going to walk past and look at it. Being an expert in communication as you are, no pressure at all, but what would be the phrase or the sentence or the word you'd like to put up there?
Well, I would say give more of your heart and your head than you think is possible. Give more of your money than you think is comfortable, and you will be more.
Brilliant. Jackie, thank you so much. And thank you to all who are listening. If you want to join our program, by all means, check us out. You can go and take a look at us at bemore.co.uk. Jackie, thank you again.
Pleasure. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks for listening to BeMORE's podcast. If you would like to partner with us in advancing the generosity movement, you have the opportunity to give at bemore.co.uk/give.